of 7 children with 4 different women to deny that you fathered child number 8 with mother number 5.
They say history has a way of repeating itself, especially when lessons go unlearned. For Mr. Scott, that truth had already chased him across 3 different courtrooms. He had stood before the judge twice before, once as the confirmed father of a child, and once as a man proven not to be. Now he was back again, a father of 7 children by 4 different women, standing before the court, denying fatherhood of what could be his 8th child with mother number 5. This time, the woman sitting across from him was Miss Crystal Smith, heartbroken, exhausted, but certain that her daughter, Honesty, belonged to him. She said, "I admit I made mistakes. I cheated once, but it wasn't when I got pregnant. The only reason he's denying our baby is because he can't control me anymore." Their story began, like so many of today's heartbreaks, online. Mr. Scott was searching for love, or so he said. "I was looking for someone real," he explained, "someone who wanted something serious." He met Crystal on a dating website, and what started as flirty messages turned into long phone calls and late-night confessions. They talked every day for 8 months. But even before they met in person, cracks were forming. Crystal recalled, "I gave him my voicemail once, and he heard guys in the background. He accused me of cheating before we'd even met." Mr. Scott snapped back, "Because I was hearing men leaving her messages, calling her sexy, saying they missed her. That's not how a woman in a relationship acts." Crystal rolled her eyes. "Those were old messages. We weren't even together yet." It was already a cycle of suspicion, before love had a chance to begin. When they finally decided to meet in person, Crystal agreed to pay half of his travel costs. But as she told the court, "I paid for everything. His ticket, the hotel, the food, everything." Mr. Scott denied it, of course. He said, "We both helped. She's acting like I was broke. I work, I got bills, I have kids. I wasn't out there using her." Crystal disagreed. "He told me he was rich, living in Hollywood with a house on the beach, fancy cars, and money in the bank. Turns out, he's an electrician from California barely making ends meet. When he arrived in Michigan, things only got worse. He didn't even hug me when we met," she said. "He just wanted to touch me like that's all I was there for. It was uncomfortable." Mr. Scott argued back, "We'd been talking for 8 months. I was excited to see my woman. I wasn't trying to disrespect her, I just wanted to be close." Still, the visit quickly turned sour. Crystal's family didn't like him. They said he was rude, controlling, and distant. Her cousin even told the court he wouldn't let her leave the hotel. He wanted her isolated, saying it was their time together. But it was weird. He didn't want to meet her family, didn't want to see anybody. And when he finally did meet them, it didn't go well. One relative recalled him yelling at a child at a family cookout, telling him to take his toy baseball bat somewhere else. He thought he was better than everyone, she said, like he was too important to be around regular people. The trip that was supposed to prove their love only proved their differences. By the time he flew back home, trust had shattered. Mr. Scott claimed Crystal cheated on him while he was in Michigan. He said he noticed a man at her workplace avoiding eye contact, acting nervous. "I could tell something happened," he said. "I used reverse psychology, told her I wouldn't leave her if she just told me the truth." And according to him, she did. "She said she slept with the guy, but it didn't last long," he said. "That's what she told me." Crystal denied his version, saying he twisted everything. "I never said that. I told him another man had flirted with me, but I didn't cheat. He made up stories because he couldn't handle that I had male coworkers. Still, their relationship dragged on. Arguments turned into silence, and silence into more accusations. Mr. Scott started calling her dishonest. Ironically, when their daughter was born, Crystal named her Honesty Love Smith. It was the kind of poetic truth that only pain could inspire. Crystal explained, "We actually planned that baby. I even took out my IUD because we wanted a child together. He was excited. He said, 'Mommy, we're gonna be a family.' But everything changed once she got pregnant. She said, the moment I told him, he disappeared. Changed his number, deactivated his Facebook, stopped answering my messages. He didn't even want people to know I was pregnant." Mr. Scott interrupted, "That's not true. My number never changed. I just needed space. She was already causing drama, posting everything online. I wasn't hiding, I was protecting my peace." Crystal shook her head. He ran, he didn't want the truth. He didn't want the responsibility. Months passed. She went through her pregnancy alone, sending ultrasound pictures to his family. Pictures she says were thrown away. "I mailed them to his mother's house," she said, voice cracking. "His girlfriend told me she saw them and that his mom said to just throw them away." Mr. Scott denied it. "I never got anything. She's making that up." Crystal had brought a witness, her friend Miss Luzinski, who backed her up completely. "Crystal paid for everything," she said. "He's controlling and manipulative. He came here acting like he was better than everyone, but he was broke and bossy. He used her and left." The courtroom gasped at her blunt honesty. The judge had heard enough. When Crystal presented receipts, bus tickets, hotel bills, and a one-way flight, totaling $1,500, it was undeniable proof she'd paid for his entire trip. Mr. Scott smirked, shrugging off the evidence. "I don't need no documents," he said. "The truth is right here." The judge wasn't impressed. "Well, your podium looks mighty empty," she replied, "and your words don't count as proof." She ruled in Crystal's favor, awarding her $684.50 in reimbursement. But the real verdict was yet to come, the DNA results. When the envelope was opened, the courtroom fell silent. In the case of Scott versus Smith, when it comes to 3-month-old Honesty Smith, "Mr. Scott, you are the father." The room exploded in emotion. Crystal sobbed with relief. Mr. Scott stood still, the color draining from his face. She looked at him through tears. I told you she was yours." He muttered something under his breath, a mix of disbelief and pride. The judge looked at him sharply. "This is your 3rd time in this courtroom, Mr. Scott. You keep saying you want love, but what you really need is accountability. You can make bobbies, but can you be a father?" Mr. Scott sighed. "I'll take care of my kid, always do." The judge leaned forward. "You've said that before, prove it this time." As he nodded, Crystal wiped her tears and picked up her baby. For the first time, there was peace on her face. Because no matter how messy the path had been, the truth was finally clear. Sometimes the truth doesn't wait for the right time. And sometimes it comes too late for the person who needs it most. For Miss Reynolds, today wasn't just about finding out who fathered her daughter. It was about honoring a man who wasn't even alive to hear the answer. She stood in paternity court clutching a picture, a photo of a man named Anthony Daniels, who had died less than a year ago. He was the man she believed was her child's father. But Anthony's family wasn't convinced. His sister, Miss Daniels, said she came for one reason: to protect my brother's name. He's not here to defend himself, and if she's lying, I won't let her ruin his legacy. The story began 6 years earlier. Miss Reynolds met Anthony at a family friend's barbecue. He wasn't flashy, just charming, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and the kind of smile that made people feel safe. I didn't fall in love fast, she said softly, but when I did, I thought it was forever. They dated for almost a year, and things seemed good, until she found out she was pregnant. That's when everything changed. Miss Reynolds said, "The moment I told him, he stopped answering my calls. He didn't come to the doctor appointments. He didn't show up when our daughter was born. It broke me." But Anthony's sister, Miss Daniels, told a different story. "My brother said that baby couldn't be his. He told me she was seeing someone else around the same time. He said he asked for a test and she refused." Miss Reynolds shook her head. "That's not true. He's the one who disappeared. I begged for a DNA test. He said he didn't need one because he knew. And then he walked out. For years, she raised her daughter, Ava, alone. She's 6 now," she said, her voice trembling. "And every time she sees a picture of him, she says, 'That's my daddy.' She never met him, but she feels it. She just knows." Miss Daniels sighed. "I'm not trying to be cruel, but people say things after someone dies that they never said while they were alive. You can't come to court years later with a child that might not even be ours and expect us to believe it." The tension between them was thick, not hate, just grief twisted into anger. Miss Reynolds said softly, "I didn't come for money. I came for the truth. My daughter deserves to know where she comes from. He's gone, but that doesn't mean his blood isn't in her." The judge nodded slowly. "Sometimes truth isn't for the dead, it's for the living." Anthony's mother had also sent a statement to the court, which was read aloud. She wrote, "My son made mistakes, but he was a good man. If this child is his, she's family. But if she's not, I don't want my son's name attached to a lie. Either way, I just want peace." As the letter was read, Miss Reynolds cried quietly. "That's all I want too," she whispered. To make the test possible, Anthony's family had agreed to provide DNA samples. The test would compare Ava's genetic material to that of Anthony's biological relatives, to confirm or exclude paternity through genetic matching. The wait was agonizing. Miss Reynolds stared at the photo of Anthony, as if his eyes might tell her what the paper soon would. Miss Daniels clutched her brother's silver cross necklace, whispering under her breath. Finally, the moment came. The judge opened the envelope, took a breath, and read slowly. In the case of Reynolds versus the estate of Daniels, when it comes to 6-year-old Ava Reynolds, the results show that there is a 99.99% probability that the late Anthony Daniels is the biological father. The courtroom filled with emotion. Miss Reynolds broke down sobbing, not from surprise but from release. "I knew it," she cried. "I told everyone I knew it." Miss Daniels covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook as she whispered, "I'm sorry, Anthony. I should have believed her." The judge spoke softly. "Miss Daniels, there's nothing to apologize for. You did what you thought was right. Now you can honor your brother by making sure this child knows where she belongs." Miss Daniels nodded through tears. "I want to meet her," she said quietly. "She's my niece. She deserves to know her family." Miss Reynolds smiled faintly. "She deserves to know you too. You're all she has left of him." After the hearing, both women agreed to meet privately. The cameras caught only glimpses of what happened next. Two women, once divided by doubt, now united by truth, hugging in the courthouse hallway as little Ava played nearby. Miss Reynolds told producers, "For 6 years, I carried the weight of being called a liar. Today, that weight is gone. He might not be here anymore, but I'll make sure his daughter knows who her father was, the good and the bad." Miss Daniels added, "It hurts knowing my brother died without knowing the truth, but maybe, through her, we get to know a part of him again." The narrator's voice softened over the final montage. Some people wait their whole lives for answers. Others find them too late. But truth has its own timing. And when it arrives, it changes everything. For one family, the truth rebuilt what death tried to take away. For another, it reminded them that being a father doesn't end with a test. It begins with love. Weeks later, the paternity court producers shared a brief update. Miss Reynolds and Miss Daniels were working together to build a relationship. Ava had met her late father's family, her grandmother, her aunts, her cousins. "They treat her like she's always been part of them," Miss Reynolds said. "She finally has the family she dreamed of." Back home in Michigan, Crystal, the woman from Part 1, watched that same episode air on television. When she saw the moment the DNA results were read, she said quietly to her daughter, "See, baby, truth always comes out, always." It was a strange kind of comfort. Two different women, two different stories, but the same ending. Because in both, the truth had finally spoken louder than the lies. The narrator's final voice closed over soft piano. "Sometimes it's not the test that defines you. It's what you do after the truth is known. Because DNA can prove blood, but it can't prove heart. That part is up to us." When the cameras shut off and the courtroom lights faded, what remained wasn't drama, it was silence. The kind that only truth can leave behind. 2 women, 2 children, 2 stories. And one shared lesson. Truth doesn't end pain. It only sets the stage for healing. Crystal Smith, the 5th woman in Mr. Scott's long, tangled trail of relationships, stood outside the courthouse holding her baby, Honesty. The crowd had left, the producers were packing up, and she finally exhaled. For the first time since she met him, she felt something new, peace. She said softly, "It's not about proving him wrong anymore. It's about proving my daughter right." She wiped her tears, looked down at her baby and smiled. "She's got his nose. Everyone said I was crazy, but I knew." Mr. Scott didn't stay to talk after the show. He walked out quietly, his head low, avoiding every question from reporters. A man who once bragged about his children now looked like he was carrying the weight of all 8 on his shoulders. He told producers off camera, "I'm not proud of how I handled things. I just kept repeating the same mistakes, expecting different results. Maybe I needed to be embarrassed on TV to finally grow up." It wasn't an apology, but it was something close. Weeks later, the court's post-show team reached out to both of them for updates. Crystal wrote back first. "He came by to see her. He didn't say much. He just sat there watching her play with her toys. When she laughed, I saw him smile for the first time. I think it hit him she's really his." She continued, "We're not together and we probably never will be again. But if he shows up for her, that's enough for me. She deserves a father, not another promise." When asked for comment, Mr. Scott's message was short but sincere. "I'm trying. That's all I can say. I've made enough mistakes to fill a book, but maybe this time I can change the ending." Meanwhile, the second half of the double episode, the story of Miss Reynolds and the late Anthony Daniels, had spread across social media. Viewers couldn't stop talking about the moment Anthony's sister cried after hearing the results, saying, "I'm sorry, Anthony. I should have believed her." It struck a chord because everyone saw themselves in that moment. The guilt, the regret, the longing to undo what can't be undone. A few weeks later, Miss Reynolds and Miss Daniels met again, this time not in court, but at a small park near the city. Little Ava ran around in a pink dress, laughing, while Miss Daniels watched from a bench. She smiled and said, "She's got his face. It's like looking at my brother again." Miss Reynolds nodded. "That's what I've been trying to tell everyone for years." Then Miss Daniels turned to her and said something that surprised everyone. "I was angry when you first filed the case. I thought you were trying to take something from us, but now I realize you gave us something back. You gave us him." Tears filled Miss Reynolds' eyes. "I didn't want to take anything. I just wanted my daughter to know where she came from." Later that day, they took their first family photo together. Ava in the middle, holding both women's hands, smiling like the world had finally made sense. The caption they posted online read, "DNA doesn't just test blood, it tests forgiveness." It went viral overnight. Thousands of people commented, sharing their own stories. Of absent fathers, broken families, and long overdue truth. Some wrote, "This episode changed me." Others simply said, "Now I believe in healing again." Back in California, Mr. Scott watched that same clip online. He told a producer later, "That little girl looked happy. She got her truth. Maybe it's time I stop running from mine." And for the first time in years, he called all of his children, every one of them. Not just the ones he lived near. Not just the ones he liked more. All 8. He didn't have all the right words, but he said the one thing that mattered. "Daddy's sorry, I love you, and I'm gonna try harder." It wasn't perfect. Some of his kids didn't answer. Some hung up. Some said it's too late. But one of them, his oldest, texted back, "It's not too late if you mean it." And for the first time in years, he cried. Months passed. Crystal began rebuilding her life as a single mother. She started a small cleaning business, saving what she could, working long hours but coming home to laughter. "Honesty's growing fast," she said. "She's got his smile and my stubbornness. She's everything I needed even when I didn't know I needed her." Miss Reynolds, too, had found peace. She and Miss Daniels kept their promise. Ava now spent weekends with her father's family. She even began calling Miss Daniels Auntie D. "She asks about him sometimes," Miss Reynolds said. "I tell her he loved cars, old music, and late-night talks. I tell her he wasn't perfect, but he would have loved her." Miss Daniels added quietly, "And I tell her he does, even from up there." The Paternity Court producers put together a special reunion segment, showcasing updates from both families. The audience fell silent as they watched short clips. Mr. Scott pushing a stroller through a park, Honesty giggling. Crystal wiping her daughter's mouth, smiling softly. Miss Reynolds and Ava lighting a candle under Anthony's photo. Miss Daniels reading Ava a bedtime story. Then came a voiceover that summed it all up perfectly. For some, the truth brings closure. For others, it brings connection. But for all, it brings peace. The judge, reflecting on both cases, said something that viewers would remember for years. DNA doesn't lie, but it also doesn't love. That part is still up to us. You can't control who you share blood with, but you can control who you show up for. That's what being a parent really means. When the episode aired, it wasn't just another courtroom story. It became one of the show's most watched double features. Not because of the shock, but because of the hope it gave people who had lived in doubt for years. Thousands wrote in afterward saying it gave them the courage to search for their truth, to take their own tests, to face their own fears, to end their own cycles. The final voiceover closed softly, fading out over real clips of the families months later. The truth may come too late for some, but it never comes empty. It brings change. It brings understanding. And sometimes, it brings home what we thought was gone forever. Because DNA can tell you who you are, but only love can tell you who you'll become.